favor say
Second.
aye. Those in favor say aye. Okay. First up is baseball co-op with Mr. Brown. I thought it was coop like a chicken. That was a baseball coop. What was that all about?
Well, that was from all the chickens. Yeah, the city council, this is a different meeting.
A few months ago, we were contacted by Diller Odell about wanting to co-op with baseball because they have a lot of kids from that area that are in our youth programs, and they don't currently have a youth or a high school baseball program. So they contacted us to see what our interest was. So Mr. Decker and I went over a lot of things. We had our parent meeting in the spring. We sat down and visited with the parents to see if there was any objections from the parents, to see if there's something we want to do. The only concern was like, if we get enough kids, can we put together a reserve schedule? And so we currently do that with all of our sports. If we get enough kids, we try to pick up reserve games, because it's hit and miss every year. You never know who's going to have what. So I think it's a good deal. We co-op right now with girls wrestling with Freeman. We co-op with Norris, Fairbury, and Freeman for swimming. The way that works financially is that we take the number of participants and we add our total cost, divide that by the number of participants, and each school gets billed for how many kids they have. So, but everyone I've talked to has been on board with it. I have not had any objections from any parents or coaches or anything like that. So I think it'd be a good move for our community. Just on top of that, there is legislation out there that they're trying to push through a little bit of, if a school does not have a sport, then a student from that school can go to whatever school they want and play that sport. So our hand might be forced eventually anyway, which that would be a horrible, horrible idea. So I think the co-op would be a good thing. Like I said, these kids have been in our program for quite a while, and everyone was on board with it. So.
You know how many?
It's hard to
It'll
say.
vary from year to year.
Yeah, it'll vary from year to
And
year.
so this wouldn't even be next school year, it'd be
Well, we started for next year, so
the next.
2025 season.
2025, 26, yeah.
24, 25.
24, 25, yeah.
20, and,
Yeah, and you do
yeah.
the co-op, you do the co-op for 2 years, so. And we just renewed for wrestling and swim and dive.
Would that change our classification for baseball?
No, we're down towards the bottom, so.
We'll stay.
Because that's something we did look at, so.
I heard from baseball coaches and Diller Odell, and everybody was very positive about it, so I'm zero issues with it, I guess.
It's worked for other sports well.
Yeah, it's worked great.
I think it also is good for kids just to meet kids from other schools. I think that's a really positive experience.
So we'll be on the April agenda for board approval.
Yes.
So we'll start next year.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Perfect.
All right, sounds good.
thanks.
Yep.
Moving back to soccer.
Good luck. We should have good weather.
Yeah.
Wow.
A little windy, but yeah.
Now Dr. Nielsen's
Thank you,
going to
guys.
talk about the strategic planning site update.
Okay, so we are going to turn it over to our elementary and middle school. This is the second year of implementation of our current strategic plan. I will tell you there's been a lot of work by our buildings to continue to align our systems district-wide, and we still have a lot to do. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot in that plan, and a lot of great pieces that are pushing us to continue to go moving forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Replogle. You do have an update.
I do, and if you need an extra copy, I've got them too, so.
We both need copies.
So we both need copies, but I am, Missy, I think, is on her way to Chicago, so I'm more than happy to be the lone person here to present. All of the buildings have committees that work on all, a variety of these things, but this year we've worked very hard to get the 4 buildings together. So early in the fall, the administration got together and we had an application for people to apply to be on the leadership team. And so then we met and we went through all the qualifications. We wanted to have representation from each one of the 4 buildings, preschool, Stoddard, Lincoln, and Paddock Lane. Luckily, we were able to do that. And in doing that, so the leadership team met and decided what are the subcommittees, what individual committees each team, each building needed to have so that all could unify together. If you remember from the strategic plan that the elementary presented before, for example, I'll just speak, Paddock Lane has a leadership committee, and it has a climate committee, it has a safety committee, it has a culture committee, it has an MTSS. So they just did this in a bigger format for everybody. So if you look down the list, just real quick, what they did is the safety and security, and they're gonna work on exactly what that says, fire drills, tornado drills. I like the idea of finding a place to mark in the building, because that's gonna be hard for kids to find their way around. So it's almost gonna be like go down 2 blocks and turn right. So they're gonna work on that, and that will be great. The WIN committee is what I need, and that is a really great idea. It kind of brought up, we've had that at Stoddard several years ago. But there'll be 30 minutes in every day, and kids will be able to go to intervention, and I'm gonna call it intervention class, whatever their need is for that 30 minutes, and they'll be able to get, I'll call it direct instruction or activities in that particular class. So we call it the WIN class. I think that's very exciting. The culture class will work not just 1 year, they'll be working for years to make sure that everybody feels like they're part of the new preschool elementary building instead of, well, I'm really from Stoddard or I'm really from Paddock Lane or whatever. The student leadership, this is new and very exciting. Nicole Grummer from Paddock Lane happens to be leading that. I'm very excited about that. They're going to have 4th and 5th grade students that'll be like a student leadership team. So those will be the kiddos that they call upon when a new student moves into school, and they will take them around, tour the school. Once again, you all know it's a huge complex, and so, or a family comes and wants to visit, and they'll show them around, or there's gonna be a teacher that's gonna come and wants to visit our school or whatever. So those kids will be put in charge of that. We use student tour guides for the Nebraska frameworks this year, and it was terrific, and the people that came from Nebraska Frameworks commented about what a great job the kids did. They could say, this room is this, and who does that? It was excellent, so I'm very excited about that. They're also looking to start before school clubs. Now, that's really in its infancy, because you have to find out who can supervise them, while we still have door duties and all those other things, or who can volunteer from the community. But kind of like if you're familiar with BLAST, it would kind of like be having BLAST before school, everything very organized, activity-wise. Then MTSS, that's not new, it's a multi-tiered system of support, and we've been having work with Larisha, I never say her name right, it's Larisha Kugel, and so the teachers are already on board with that, and that will just be brought together and everybody in the same complex. Instructional practices, I know you've heard Chad Dumas's name more than one time, and he has worked closely with administration as well as with PLC leaders and actually classroom teachers in our classrooms to help with instructional practices. And this, about what, 3 or 4 weeks ago, Linda Hamilton came and she visited all the buildings, spent about a day in all of the buildings, and then came up with ideas, what would be things to do, what are things that Paddock Lane does that really would be great to share with everybody, what are things that Lincoln does, or Stoddard does, or the preschool does. So finding a way to bring some of the old things that we already do into the new building and share them so that everybody gets advantage to do that. And I walked around with her quite a bit, didn't interrupt, just walked around. And she was great, and she loved some of the things, and I'm sure she did at Lincoln and Stoddard in preschool too. So that's not really our last strategic plan, but you all are going to be looking at a whole new strategic plan for the new school. So these are steps we've already taken to get there. And I know that was really fast, but it needed to be so. Anything anybody would like to ask? If you think of something, please feel free to stop me if you need something, okay? All right.
Thank you.
So those pieces really focus on 4 and 5 of our strategic plan, because it's really building the systems. And we knew that we needed to get that foundation set for the new LPK5 building, so that has been a huge focus of where they have been. Our middle school, on the other hand.
All right, so ours will be up on the screen. These are the 3 goals that I presented to you guys back in the fall that we prioritized out the strategic plan. So goal number 1, recruit highly qualified teachers. We have a lot of retirements So that's 3.1. I'll just go through these and I'll break them down. So here's an update on our hiring for the middle school. So we anticipated this school year of having a lot of turnover, just with retirements and some positions that we were unable to fill this school year. So we're at just about 90% there, hopefully. We have interviews on Monday for social studies position, and but we were able to hire 2 special education, 2 math, 2 physical education, 1 PE, or excuse me, 2 physical education, 1 language arts, 1 school counselor, and a social studies teacher. So we'll have a lot of new faces in our building. So a lot of experience walking out our door, but it'll be exciting to bring new ideas and fresh faces and so forth into the middle school. So that was a focus we took to really plan and prepare to try to get those hired, and we actually hired 6 out of the 8 before Christmas break. So I thank our teachers that were retiring, giving me the benefit of being able to get this done with preparation. So. Goal number 2, develop grade level meetings to discuss academic, behavioral, mental health needs, strategy 2.2. So something we looked at that's in conjunction to those hirings is reshifting our master schedule. I talked at a Cal meeting previously of what that would look like. So this year we implemented what we call grade level meetings, and it's simply every month we bring our teams together and talk about what students are needing academically, behaviorally, social, emotional, and so forth, and provide those interventions as needed. We have made some adjustments to our master schedule to really enhance our academic interventions. So that'll be good for us. One of those is full year reading, building in a specific intervention class next year will help meet our students that may have gaps before we go right into special education. So our goal is to try to catch them a lot earlier and meet their needs before that. So 90% there, only because that will take flight next school year. So those things are in place though. Goal number 3, decrease minor and major behavioral infractions from the 22 school year into any year forward. So we laid out our behavioral systems. Last year was kind of our baseline of getting that system in place. And so our goal from there is continue to become better. So here's the data that we have with that. So from the spring of last year to the fall of this year, we had 520 minor behavior referrals in the spring of 23, 455 in the first semester. So comparing a semester to semester here, once a year's over, I'll be able to go year to year. But then a very significant, doesn't look that significant on the right side, but it is. 117 major behavior referrals in the spring of last year, and only 41 at the beginning of this year. So this isn't one of our goals, this next one, but I think it goes hand in hand to the behaviors that I want to share. So this is our ICU data that you guys know we've implemented at the middle school. So the black bar looks like I cut off the text at the bottom. So the black bar is prior to, I relabeled that, sorry. I edited this like 10 minutes before I walked over, so. The black is actually prior to ICU, not 6th grade, so ignore the top part. So the left side here, this is 6th grade, this is all 6th grade, that's all 7th, that's all 8th, okay? So the black is prior to ICU in total number of failing grades, okay? Or students failing a class. Orange is second semester last year, when we first semester of implementing our Power of ICU, and then the gray is first semester of last year, or of this year. So a considerable decrease in students failing with that implementation. So we've got things going in the right direction. Our staff have done a tremendous job buying in and doing the day-to-day work to give kids, showing what we've kind of switched the mindset of doing your work sort of thing into you need to show us what you're learning, right? So, and I think that speaks for itself. So that's all I've got. Any questions?
Yeah,
you back up the one on the referrals for minor and major behavioral type things, what are you actually counting on that? So if someone has a complaint, hey, their kid's getting bullied or something, for instance, does every complaint get registered on that tally that you have, or just those that get referred in some fashion?
Good
to
question. So we've set up a behavioral flow chart there. So we've identified what behaviors are minor behaviors, and those are teacher handled, and then what behaviors are administrative handled, and those are majors. Any minor referral that a teacher handles that is given what we call stop form, which is stop, think, observe, plan to a student. They maybe tried a nonverbal or verbal redirection and the behavior's continuing. They'll give them a stop form, which is a reflection sheet. What do they need to change about the behaviors? What expectations they're not following? Setting up a plan to return into class. So those are all documented and input. So if there's a behavior, students not listening in class, and the teacher's able to verbally or non-verbally get them back on track, that's just teaching. But if they're trying that and it's unsuccessful, then the teacher will give them a stop form to reflect on what they need to do to improve. They have a short conversation. All those get documented. There's a mailbox by Mr. Stengel's office that we'll look through them, and we see a student that's getting a lot of minors, we'll bring them in. But every month we have a data meeting that shows what students are having these documented minor behaviors, and do we need to put more behavioral support in place for them. So I would say yes, the ones, if we've given administrative consequence, it'll be in the majors, yeah. Whether that's a conference, anything from a conference to an out-of-school suspension, so, yeah. So, and we try to document as much as we can so we can make purposeful decisions, so. Yep. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now for the exciting part.
Okay, so we will move into perceptual data. That is the one that has the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in front of it. During the fall semester, we administer the High Reliability School Perceptual Survey. Survey focuses on just level 1 and 2 of the High Reliability Schools model. Level 1 focuses on safe, supportive, and collaborative cultures. Level 2 focuses on effective teaching in every classroom. So these are two of the foundational pieces, which lead to the next levels. As Marzano describes in his work when he put this together, if you can be effective in 1, 2, and 3, you are a solid school. You are a highly reliable school. So that is our goal, and we're continuing to move up and continuing to look at where we are. So as we look at level 1, you can see on the page that there are 8 different indicators that we look at. So I want you to turn the page because these are, we're going to go through some of our highlights. As you look at level 1, there are quite a few highlights that we can garner from the data. So we know that our school is safe. As you look at that one, staff, students, and parents and guardians both put it above 4. It is out of 5. So 5 is the top piece. And I will tell you, every year that we've given this, we have been really right over that 4. And so that has been very nice. Students understand the expectations, rules, and procedures. That is another area where we are seeing a highlight. Emergency management procedures are updated on a regular basis, and PLC teams analyze student achievement and growth. So there are a lot of great things that are happening with our level 1, and we feel that as a district, especially when we get to showcase some of what our peers told us about during our advanced ed and our Cognia, our frameworks visits, our accreditation visits, level 1 is really where we are solid. We build very strong relationships with our students, build very strong relationships with our families, and we work together to try and solve all problems. However, there are still a few areas of growth. As you look at level 1, areas of growth that we would be looking at is ensuring formal ways to provide input regarding how the student functions. As you can see, that is kind of teachers and staff have formal ways to provide input about the functioning. That is right in between 3.43 to 3.84. And then 1.6 is about students, parents, and the community having formal ways. That's 2.97 to 3.55. So that would be an area. Now, we are not talking about having input on every single decision because we know that that's not possible. But there are ways to garner more feedback about where things are and where our processes are and how we can do better. And so those are things that we can continue to work on. And then, of course, celebrating the successes within our schools in all different ways. I think that's probably something that is constantly, just because there are times that there's so much to celebrate, and sometimes we get so busy with everything else that we sometimes forget to stop and just say, nicely done. So level 2 is effective teaching in every classroom, and there are 6 indicators for success in this one. As you look at the level 2, this is an area probably where you don't see as many highlights. You are going to probably see more areas of growth because we are continuing to work on these practices. We're continuing to work in these areas. So a couple of the pieces that we look at is students enjoy the teachers at our school. Teachers at my school are good teachers. Teachers are using, this was kind of a pretty cool one. The students said, and there was an increase from last year, it was a 3.95, it went up to 4.10, but teachers are using the same language and words to talk about how they teach the activities we do in class. That's huge. We want teachers to use a common language for instruction, a common language for procedures, for their practices. So because kids then know what to expect. So if we have a bell ringer or a warm-up, we call it the same thing so that kids are hearing the same language, so they know exactly what to expect when they walk in the classroom. So that is a piece where we are seeing improvements.
I think it's intriguing that there's such a gap between how students think the teachers are good and the parents.
I would agree.
I think that's very interesting because the
Uh-huh.
people that are sitting in the classroom observing this on a daily basis seem to think they're
Yeah.
good, but,
No, I know. It is very interesting to look even deeper at some of the data or just to see the trends, and it's like, okay, why? Why is this way? Why is that way? And the other thing is when you send it out, that also plays a role in it too. We send it out probably right about Thanksgiving time frame, but I do think we've sent it out at different times, or we've sent it out like by, I think, parent-teacher conferences one year in September. Well, there were a lot of people that wrote, well, I have no clue, because they're kindergarten or they're first grade or they're new to the district, and I'm like, okay, well, that probably was not the best time to send it out.
Yeah, because I think part of the question is how carefully thought out each question is by each person doing the answering. So
Exactly.
what are you considering? These guidelines. Otherwise, these are fairly terse
Yeah.
questions. Do you? Don't really know.
See, and that's the other thing, I know that Mr. Hickey and I have had this conversation quite a bit too, is the questions on here, are they relevant for all groups to be filling out? And so we've been really working on kind of some of the questions. They're asking, I can't remember one off the top of my head, but it really goes more in depth than parents would even know or care to know. And so it's like, okay, well, why is that question on there? So there are some things that we have removed just because we're like, okay, these are the pieces still within that level 2 or still within that level 1 that we truly want to know. And we want their perception and their understanding. And that's the other piece is, this is a perceptual piece. So it is their perception at that moment in time. Maybe they had someone that they were talking to that just said, oh, this teacher did an awful job, or oh, this teacher was great. So that is, yeah, it's at that point in time, and it's one little piece of data that we look at just to help guide us.
Yeah, it's anecdotal. And,
Yep.
And what does a 1 mean? What does a 2 mean? Examples, but getting into too much detail and
Exactly.
yeah, you can't do
Yes.
everything.
Yep. Perfect. And what's interesting about level 2 growth is at the high school, when we were receiving our feedback from Cognia, they brought up the piece of the job embedded professional development and really aligning it to teachers' goals. and aligning it to where their focus needs to be and making it more relevant for them. So that was a nice correlation as we look at that data. So that is the perceptual survey that we utilize. There are other pieces of data as I was talking with Beth Cordray Hookstra, and we are going to also bring in some special education perceptual pieces because a quarter of our students receive special education services. So it's nice to just share that data that we have as well. Any questions? Okay. Perfect, moving on. The next one we are talking about is our accreditation visit. We had 2 fantastic accreditation visits in February, one February 6th, and then another one, the 26th and 27th. Now, we have both reports, but we have not been able to kind of sift through the reports yet. We've printed them off, and that's about all the farther we've gotten. So, we will bring those reports to you in a future meeting, but what I wanted to do was talk about how Beatrice is set up. Because this is a very interesting setup. We're a little bit different than most other districts in the state of Nebraska. Most other districts fall under one system or the other. We fall under both. Previous years, so 5 years ago, we were able to do one visit for both systems. The state said, okay, at that point in time, you could combine the 2 visits, and the person doing it would write a report for Cognia, would write a report for Nebraska Frameworks. That is no longer happening. So we ended up having one February 6th that we had to prepare for, and then we had one the 26th and 27th that we had to prepare for.
Why do we have 2?
Because when we first, 117 years ago, we signed on with North Central Accreditation, or whatever it was 117 years ago. And that was just the high school. The high
I came
school.
the next year.
Did you? So you have a lot more understanding about the history than I do. No. The high school at that point in time, it was probably your only building that had to be accredited. Because if you were graduating, you wanted to graduate from an accredited high school because it truly made a difference as to which college you were able to get into, which school you were going on to. So now, every system, every school building or system has to be accredited. And so the thing is that we picked up, we did not join Cognia, we did not join, it's been a couple different things along the way, but we did not, our other elementary buildings and middle school did not join it. They kept with Nebraska Frameworks and just said, you know, we're just accredited by the state. The thing with Cognia is it costs money. So in front of you, you have a table that goes through kind of the similarities and differences. You can see that the purpose is the same. The end result, accreditation through Nebraska, is the exact same. The goals are based upon our student data and improving student performance, it's the same. Improvement plans focus on strategies and professional development. They require perceptual data. So you can continue looking that there are a lot of different things. You have to use a platform. This maybe should be different, but you have to have a platform that you utilize to showcase what you're doing or to write up all of your evidence. For Cognia, you use their platform called My Journey, and for Nebraska Frameworks, it's your own. So we use a Google site for our data to showcase who we are. The mission statement is reviewed during this process, just like it's reviewed during our strategic planning process. And some people, there are districts that align their strategic planning process with this. We do not. We have done like 2 years of implementation with our strategic plan, and then we had this review, and that's how we'll continue to do it. I think it works well, because the nice thing about Nebraska Frameworks is their focus and their feedback was based upon our strategic plan. So when I share that Nebraska Frameworks review, you're going to see, okay, they aligned it directly to the action steps that we created and we said we want our district to move forward with and our buildings to move forward with. Cognia aligns it to their standards. And you can see that their standards, they have 4 key characteristics, and then the standards fall underneath that. So that is one huge place where they are different. The two systems are different in that piece. The other place where they are different is the cost.
Is
Yes.
this just the high school that does the Cognia?
It is just the high school that does Cognia. However, I'm gonna tell you, preparing for 2 visits is difficult. Because you have 2 different systems that you're trying to work with and manage and trying to get, you know, working with the administrative team, it was like, okay, well, you do this and the rest of you do this. And so it was hard to manage. This year previous years, it's been easy because we've all done the same thing. And we've been allowed to do the same thing by the state. This year, we have 2 different teams that came in, so 2 different groups. I was able to talk the leaders into meeting with board members together. So you had the 2 leaders that were sitting on that, and they did the board member. There were Eric, Doris, and Janet participated in that interview. And then you 2 participated, Eric and Chuck participated in another interview where we had you with parents. But it was, I was able to talk them into working together through that process. So I think at this point in time, we're really evaluating where should we go.
So what's the value of having this Cognia people?
That's one of the questions that we keep asking ourselves. They do have a lot of resources, but the question is, are we even using the resources? And when I asked that question to Mr. Suter, no, we have a lot of resources that they're already providing that we use as a district. And so that's the piece that they have numerous things. I mean, they have their own perceptual surveys, they have curriculum pieces and in content area pieces, they have an observation tool. And so they have a lot of different things, but we already as a district have it. My thought process is I want the district to either be Cognia or Nebraska Frameworks.
What would it cost the whole district if we were the Cognia people?
$31,000.
Oh, it's the same.
For the whole.
This is, yeah, this would be 40, this is moving forward. Currently, Mr. Suter pays $2,000 a year, and then
I think it's something like that.
$2,000 a year, and then $5,000 during the visit. This would be, so those totals right there are if the district switched over to Cognia next year. So we moved the elementary and the middle school that way.
Does it help our students in any way?
No.
I mean, like, before, when they said they went to college, it made them,
Yep.
like, when we held on to that North Central accreditation, it was, but
Yes.
this, so that's no big deal, so.
But it is no big deal. And there, I will tell you, a trend across the state, as the curriculum directors talk a lot, is there are more schools switching from Cognia to Nebraska Frameworks. Because you are not necessarily seeing the benefit, and plus Nebraska Frameworks has really upped their game too, and they're pushing districts, but they're letting districts say, this is my story, here's how we're meeting it. And the part that I truly enjoyed was when we came to the final presentation and everything was aligned right back to our strategic plan, right back to what we were doing, and I'm like, oh yay. It's nice to have those peers come in. It's a great process to have the peers come in and validate your efforts, but also say, okay, now here's where we're seeing you could capitalize and continue to move forward and continue to take advantage of.
So if we had Cognia come in here, what would they tell us? What is that, how would they sell this program? I mean, what would they say they do so much better?
Professional development. So on their site, again, it goes back to all of the resources that they have on their site.
But we don't use them.
No,
Oh,
you are correct.
perfect.
So is Cognia a national thing and Nebraska just Nebraska? And is that cheaper because it's subsidized by the state?
Yes, basically. I mean, and that is, the part that you pay for are the people that come, and you pay for their travel expenses, their food expenses, and you also pay for hotels if they need it. But one of the things the state has done is they have said, we want to reduce the cost for districts because we know districts can't fund this. So we're gonna find people that are closer to you that could travel during the day, go back home at night. And so that's the thing, is there's a lot of things that they've done. And Cognia has done that too. Cognia used to be a 2-day visit, it's now just a 1-day visit. Now, if it was the whole system, it would be more, but the high school was just 1 day. But if it was all schools, it would be 2 days, because you would need 2 days.
I think it's mutually beneficial for Nebraska Frameworks, people going into other schools, because
Yeah.
you also take away ideas back to your own school. So that's kind of the benefit of why individuals volunteer to sit on these external review teams.
Although I can see value in bringing people in that may have to travel, I mean, from farther than a day's trip, you know? Because we talked to people from Tri-County, people that were close, you know, I don't know. And there's good and bad on either
Bellevue,
side.
I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or the
Mhm.
Cognia lady used to work at Bellevue, I think.
Yeah, and we had a superintendent from Lyons Decatur come down to our visit, so we needed, yeah. So we did have people that were farther away. I think we had 3 people that needed a hotel room for the Nebraska Frameworks visit, and the rest did not. But it was a wide variety of people, from teachers to administrators to superintendents, and just all different backgrounds. So it's really fun to get their perspective, and
Is the report they send it back
they're
more
very similar.
robust?
The Cognia will give you like an IEQ score. It's a educational quality score, indicator of educational quality. And they do have scores. They do have data that they input, and then everything generates something. They have a bigger system that can do that. The Nebraska Frameworks is more just a PowerPoint and then a write-up, the narrative piece. So it doesn't have all the bells and whistles.
You better have something. That's a big bell for
So I do think it is, I mean, it's a decision that we are looking at making this year, but I do want to say that we've been 117 years with Advanced Ed, Nebraska, North Central Accreditation, and so that is hard. I mean, that is a huge legacy. It's hard to just take and jump ship, and that's why we really wanted to go through and kind of figure out. But our goal is to have a decision made before the end of the year, so that when that bill does come back, we either move everyone or we stop.
So right now, do you have an inclination of what you would prefer?
To shift over to Nebraska Frameworks for everyone. Yeah. Just because I see more value in what they're providing us, especially since it was directly related to what we're doing and our strategic plan. And Cognia was fantastic. And they have great, like I said, they have great resources, but if we aren't going to use it, that's a lot of money to spend when we are not using something to the fullest.
And I think there's just one more thing on the
There
agenda.
is, and it's just a quick announcement. So Food for Hope is an organization located in Beatrice. They are seeking permission to use the preschool baseball upper field this summer. They are looking at a 4-concert series event. So it's a Saturday, 4 Saturdays of food and music. 4 Saturdays will happen in June, July, August, and September. And we have worked with AliCap Insurance to confirm that it's an acceptable event, but also to make sure that our facility use form covers everything, since it's a repetitive event, and since it's also at a site where we may not be taking care of it in the near future. So it's one of those things we wanted to make sure that we had bases covered, and we made sure that we had the certificate of insurance coverage. That is probably the piece we are waiting for. So we have met with, or Jason has met with the representative from Food for Hope, Terry Sue Mansa, to make sure that they have that certificate of insurance so that they have liability
Where's that?
piece. Where would it be? Okay, so at the preschool, there is
Where will
actually,
people park?
where will they park?
I'm a little concerned about where this many, I mean, if it's a free concert, you know, is this a Woodstock kind of
Woodstock.
event? I mean, there is not a lot of parking out there.
There's not
The
on
other
to our
concern I
right.
have, this is a residential area, are all those people gonna be all that fired up about loud music? I don't know. I probably wouldn't be real keen on it, 11:30, I mean, it's pretty close.
And I don't know what time it's happening, whether it's going to be a day thing or whether it's an evening into the night. That's the part I'm not sure of.
There are other facilities in this community that would be equally adequate for that kind of event, including Riverside, which in my world, or the Tabernacle at Chautauqua, which in my mind is more parking.
Can't be
Not
louder than when
supposed
the
to be.
races are going on.
Huh?
Can't be louder than when the races are going on.
We don't need to give them another night of that.
It'd be the same night.
Yeah, we do it the same night as the race.
There you go. They can go hand in hand.
I have concerns, and I've expressed those concerns. And
During
there are more
fireworks.
concerns than that, but those are a few of them. And they were offered other places.
I do with the Board of Education